The proper study of mankind is murder. Everywhere in the world, people are fascinated by the breaking of this most fundamental taboo. The breaking of a taboo tells us more about an individual and about the civilization that produced that individual than almost any other thing. What motivates one person to kill another? And why do some countries produce more killers than others? These questions have puzzled me all my life.
Elliot Layton, the professor of anthropology at Memorial University in Newfoundland, has written 11 books, including the bestsellers Hunting Humans and Men of Blood. London's Daily Telegraph calls Layton one of the world's leading criminologists and a godhead of modern psychology. He's been consulted by the FBI, the RCMP, and Scotland Yard. And to talk about this, Elliot Layton joins me in the studio now. Good morning, Dr. Layton.
Good morning, Jim.
Thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Isn't murder a strange place for an anthropologist to be digging around?
The study of homicide, such as it is, has been dominated mainly by mainstream criminologists, psychologists, lawyers, and so on, who have their own perspectives, whereas an anthropologist obsessed with culture and the coded meanings that litter the lives of human beings and civilizations, we've got a very fresh perspective to put on it.
And what do other anthropologists think about your area of expertise?
I think many academics in general, and anthropologists in particular, regard it as sensational and vulgar and not worthy of the senior common room.
I've been studying murder most of my adult life, but I don't get it still. I understand insane, raging anger against people who you think are your enemies or who have betrayed you. I understand that really easily. I can understand taking them by the hair and smacking their face. But to kill someone, to end their life, I don't get it. I don't see how anyone can do it. Now, we tend to talk mostly about murder in this course because it's the only violent crime that we have adequate data on. When you hear government reports that sexual assault is down 4%, that doesn't mean anything, or up 4%. That's just reporting rates. It's not measuring the true rate of incidence. But murder rates, there's a body, you disappear tonight, somebody's going to notice. I live in a town called Paradise, an unlikely name in Newfoundland. It gives me a special vantage point just to be able to contemplate carnage and horror from a safe haven. My wife, Bonnie, the artist, had for years been bringing home these sort of scary, trashy journalist things on the son of Sam, he will bite your head off. And I finally picked up one of them. I'd never read any of them. It was Ann Rule's book on Ted Bundy, The Stranger Beside Me. And I just found this idea so amazing. The idea that someone would hurt somebody who they just made love to, I found it so impossibly confusing and mystifying that I immediately thought, well, I must go over to the medical school, check the psychiatric literature, look for the proper explanation of these people. And when I got over there, I found that there was no literature. There were no received opinions. There was no developed academic literature, whatever, on this phenomenon of the serial murderer. I essentially locked myself in my study for 4.5 years, and out came Hunting Humans. If you live in Newfoundland, your chance of being murdered in any given year is 1 out of 100,000. It's tiny. And that rate is the same for England, oddly enough, which is the bigger achievement because they did it in an urbanized, industrialized society with racial and ethnic enmities, and it's an astonishing achievement. Anyway, you live in Newfoundland, it's 1 out of 100,000. The Canadian rate is 2. If you live in the United States, that rate sits around 10. Now that's one heck of a difference, isn't it? 10 times. The United States has the highest homicide rate of any developed industrial Western nation. Since human beings are all the same, biologically, if there was a biological cause for aggression, then since human beings are the same everywhere in the world, then the murder rates would be the same everywhere in the world. Because we would be responding biologically as biological creatures. But they're not. They're different by a factor of as much as 1,000. So there may be some biological input into human behavior, aggressive behavior, but we haven't established it yet. If psychological factors caused, created, shaped the incidence of murder and violence in a particular country, then once again it would everywhere be that the rates would be the same. I mean, are Americans 10 times more insane than Newfoundlanders? No, they're not. Did 10 times more Americans than Newfoundlanders have deprived childhoods? I doubt it. Homicide isn't of interest because it's a statistically significant part of our lives. It's of interest, I believe, because it tells you so much about the nature of a civilization, the nature of a culture and the sophistication of a culture, and about the stresses, strains, fractures, and animosities that go on inside a culture.